This is the first significant move that this GM has made. What do I think it means? One, he's not afraid to make bold moves. You traded the best player on your team. Full stop. You could say Roquan Smith, maybe, but he doesn't play the same premium position. Khalil Mack's the best player on the Bears. I know Robert Quinn had a better year. I know Roquan Smith was a monster, but there are fewer people on earth who can do what a healthy Khalil Mack can do. The Chargers are making their version of the Rams Von Miller move. They are looking at this as a 2-year window, go win a Super Bowl. He will be the missing piece. Ryan Poles trading Khalil Mack is a bold move. It should be somewhat instructive that he's willing to make those types of moves. Secondly, he will say this does not signal a rebuild. We'll see what he does with the resources that have been freed up here. But I think what this is going to be is about a shifting of resources. Ryan Pace spent a ton of resources on the defensive side of the ball because he was trying to build a great defense when he had a quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, on a rookie contract. He figured, I got my head coach to develop my rookie quarterback. I'll give him a stud defense, and everything will be fine, which was a logical way to go about it. The problem was you didn't have your coach or your quarterback. So the offense sucked. So even when the defense was good, whether they were the best or second best in 2018 or they were top 10 in 19 or 20, they were not able to win games in the modern NFL at a high enough clip because the offense couldn't pull their weight. Ryan Poles is basically doing the inverse here if I had to connect some dots. He is freeing up resources, acquiring a second-round pick in a deep wide receiver draft, freeing up cap space. My guess is because he has a defensive head coach who can maybe get more with less out of the defense to pour some capital and some resources into the offense to support Justin Fields. Which, even though I've got my questions about Eberflus, given where the league is going, this is a more sensible approach to making sure that you invest around your rookie contract quarterback in Justin Fields. Like, Khalil Mack is a luxury item at this point. He's 31 years old. So it is possible his best football is behind him. But more than that, it signals that we don't think we are going to be able to build a Super Bowl contending team while Khalil Mack is still in his prime. So let's sell as high on Khalil Mack as we possibly can. He will not be more valuable on the trade market than he is right now. So let's get what we can for him, acquire some more cap space, acquire another premium draft pick, and start funneling those resources towards the offense and Justin Fields and Luke Getsy, and hope that Matt Eberflus can coach up this defense. So while I am a little disappointed that the second draft pick isn't more valuable than a 2023 sixth, that's a very low value thing. This is basically Khalil Mack for a second round pick. I would have liked there to be an extra draft pick in this year's draft. My guess is Khalil Mack's injury is what prevented that from happening. And there's only so many teams that can take on his cap hit. But overall, assuming these resources are going to be funneled to the offensive side of the ball, I'm in favor of this. We talked about this the day the Bears were eliminated, that I would have traded or looked to trade both Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack. Aging pass rushers on a team that isn't ready to win a Super Bowl are kind of like a great closer on a bad baseball team. Nothing more useless than a great closer on a baseball team that's going to win 75 games. Your pass rushers are like your closers. You want to get a lead, have the other team have to drop back to pass, have the pass rushers tee off on them, close them out. Bears aren't ready to win a Super Bowl this year. So maybe you'll be playing with more leads, maybe you won't. We'll see how it goes. But regardless of if they're a 6-win team or an 11-win team, they're not a Super Bowl ready team. And so giving up your closer, your pass rusher, and weakening that part of your team will make your defense worse. Do not get it twisted. The Bears defense took a huge step back today. It feels like, if I could read this, it feels like what they're saying is we might be in more shootouts, but we're going to put offensive resources onto this team. Maybe it'll be offensive line. Maybe it'll be receiver. It's probably going to have to be both. But we've got to come out of this year figuring out whether or not Justin Fields has it. And if we lose games 38-31, fine. But at least we now know we've got an offense that's capable of putting up 30 points in a game. And then you start rebuilding the defense because you're not going to have a championship defense with Khalil Mack on it in this short a period of time unless you have the other things in place. The Chargers have the other things in place. They just franchise tagged Mike Williams. They still have Keenan Allen. They still have Austin Eckler. They still have Justin Herbert. They still have Corey Linsley. They still have Rashawn Slater. Like they've got 6 great offensive players, including a quarterback. That is a top 5 potential offense in the NFL. Now they're ready to say, okay, let's put together a defense. Let's give Joey Bosa someone that he can rush opposite with. Let's invest. I would imagine they're going to invest in a defensive tackle to help with their run D, which was pathetic last year. They kept their first round pick. There's the 17th pick in the draft. Like if I would guess what the Chargers are going to do, it'll be the exact opposite of what the Bears are doing. The Bears are shifting resources from defense to offense. My guess is the Chargers are going to be shifting resources this year onto their defense because their offense was good enough to win last year. Their defense wasn't. So while I wish they got more for Khalil Mack, the strategy behind it, I think, is very, very, very sound. 312-644-6767. You ready for this? Like, are people ready for the worst Bears defense that we've seen in 5 years? Right? Like 2016, 2017 off the top of my head? You guys, are we ready for this? I'll have to go back through and look at the rankings, but defense is going to take a step back because it's very unlikely that Robert Quinn produces at the level that he did last year. And let's be honest, this trade might mean they're trading Robert Quinn too. Remember what happened when Pace took over from Emery? Like, that team was really bad, and this team is only kind of bad, and you hope that Justin Fields makes them good quickly. But like, this team at least has pieces. Darnell Mooney's a piece. Roquan Smith's a piece. Jalen Johnson's a piece. Justin Fields, we certainly hope, is a piece.
David Montgomery,
it's just a low-value position, but yes, David Montgomery is certainly a piece. Tevin Jenkins, I'm pretty sure, is a piece.
I think a second-round pick, honest to God, this is going to sound wild, but I think a second-round pick is a steal for this version of Khalil Mack. You haven't seen what Khalil Mack actually is since the first game he played for the Bears. With zero consistency, have you seen a good version of Khalil Mack since the first game he played for the Bears? I think a second-round pick will end up being a steal.
Yeah, I think that if Khalil Mack is healthy, he still is a very good football player. And 6 sacks in 7 games is obviously a very disruptive player. But he just, even when he played the 2 years before that, he was battling through injury. So my broad strokes here are the draft got a little bit more interesting for Ryan Poles. He's got the 39th and 48th pick to deal with. He saved himself a ton of money for next offseason, and resources are going to be slated and moved from defense to offense to support Justin Fields. The inverse of what Pace did. Pace thought, I've got my cheap quarterback and my head coach to help him. I'll put the rest of my resources on defense. Poles says, I've got my coach to help out my defense. I'm putting my personnel resources on the offensive side of the ball. What this means for Robert Quinn would not surprise me at all to see him get dealt. Also, it's just a bold move for Ryan Poles. I said I would have done it the day that the season ended. So it's not like this is a shocking out of nowhere move, but it is the first big trade of the NFL offseason. So Ryan Pace was an aggressive GM in terms of draft day maneuvering and going out and getting his guy. Looks like the Bears might have another one of those in Ryan Poles.